Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Crash, and today I have a small follow-up to the Manga magazine video that I did a couple weeks ago. So in that video I mentioned the manga demographics and I said that I was planning on doing a more in-depth video about it. And that's this video, this one right here. Now, I'm not going to go through the history of those terms because I feel like that was covered in the history of manga magazines, so if you're interested in that, I recommend checking that one out. And in today's video, I'm going to focus more on what demographics exist and what they are. So, I'm going to assume you know what demographics are. They tell you what the target audience of the work is. Of course, it is important to distinguish the target audience from the actual audience. Each manga is written with a specific demographic in mind, but I think that if it's well written enough, your actual audience will be varied. Now, what decides the target audience is not necessarily the authors themselves and more the magazines where the manga is published. So, like I mentioned in the previous video, each magazine is made with a specific target demographic in mind, and they try to have their magazine filled with manga that appeals to that audience. So the four main demographics are Shonen, Shojo, Seinen, and Josei. And I'm assuming that if you were a fan of anime or manga for long enough, you most likely have heard the terms of, at the very least, Shonen, Seinen, and Jojo. And you may not know what those terms mean, but hopefully by the end of the video you will. Let's start with Shonen. The kanji for the word shonen is made of words young and years, but the word is actually used to describe boys, and that's exactly what this is. Shonen manga is manga for young to teen boys, generally more for teens actually, for ages 12 to 18. To understand what makes shonen a shonen, we need to know how a teen boy thinks, and contrary to the other target demographics, I am very much capable of thinking like one, or at least like a mid-2000s, early 10s teenage boy, because I have no fucking idea what you guys mean with this manga is deadass lit, no caps. I'm sorry, I am old. Either way, most people seem to assume that shonen is a very specific genre of manga called battle shonen. Battle shonen is, well, manga that focuses on battles and belongs to the shonen demographic, but it is just that, a movement that belongs to shonen and happens to be the most popular genre in anime and manga culture, having titles like Dragon Ball and One Piece and Naruto under its banner. Teen boys fighting against society or saving the world when adults fail, using their willpower and their friends, is a big trope of shonen. And looking from the perspective of a teen boy, it makes sense that a large majority would swirl towards manga with these themes. But that's not the only major genre in shonen manga. Sports manga, featuring a bunch of male teen teams fighting in school tournaments, pop extremely frequently, and of course, because teens are very horny, ecchi manga also strives a lot in the shonen demographic. But shonen has a lot more to offer once you discard the main genres, and this is true for every one of the demographics. But shonen also has titles like Konokatashi and Yotsuba End. Ultimately, shonen manga is the most popular demographic of them all, and most of the best-selling titles belong to it. But seinen is the next step for shonen fans. The kanji for this one comprises the words years, with nen, and, you guessed it, blue, or green. But it can also mean young. The word itself is used for the meaning youth, but seinen manga in specific means manga that targets older teens and adult males. A lot of these manga follow the genres that are popular with shonen demographic, but tackle more mature themes. It also has less censure, so it can go to darker, heavier topics and have bolder depictions of gore and sex. That's how you get works like Berserk, Goodnight Punpun, and Monster. Seinen is very often seen as the mature and therefore better alternative to shonen, to the point that when a good battle shonen pops up, arguments of should it be a seinen often appears. And while a lot of my favorite manga are indeed seinen, I also have come across with a lot of bad stuff in the genre. Seinen is not defined specifically by having psychological themes or gore. A lot of horror manga with tons of gore is actually shonen, and there are tons of bright, innocent seinen. Not long ago I read the manga Orange Yane no Shisana Ye, don't know how to pronounce that, but it is a very wholesome story about two divorced families that are forced to be together. There's no major psychological elements, there's no gore nor sex. But the themes of dealing with divorce and heavy focus on marriage, work, and creating a family still fits perfectly into the seinen demographic, as a lot of adults will be dealing with that. Also, the cute girls doing cute things is actually pretty frequent in seinen, with titles like Keihan, Eurocamp, and Non Biori fitting this demographic. Moving to uncharted territory, we have shoujo manga. Sho still means few, so jo means woman. Few women, girls. Shoujo manga is manga for teen girls. Now, people often think of romance when they think of shoujo, and despite not being actually true till the 60s, a lot of modern shoujo is indeed romance manga. Works like Fruits Basket, How Haru Ride, and Orange. Shoujo tends to feature a more cute art style, characters with slender features, bigger eyes, and lots of sparkles in the background. Of course, this is just a generalization, and depending on the artist, they may not feature these tropes at all. But shoujo is not simply made of romance. Mao Shoujo originated in this demographic and is still very much where it thrives the most, even if it has leaked into others. Works like Cardcaptor Sakura and Sailor Moon remain some of the most popular. Shojo also has its fair share of fantasy and historical manga, like Yuna of the Dawn and Road of Versailles. Despite being one of the major target demographics, truth is shoujo is often miscategorized, with any and all romance manga being thrown into this category, even if they are actually shonen. If your romance has an array of big boob women fighting for men, it's unlikely that it's actually a shoujo. Cute girls doing cute things may also be miscategorized as shoujo when the vast majority are either seinen or shonen. And the final demographic is Josei, which is the one with the most straightforward naming. Jo is woman or female and sei means gender, so woman. It's the counterpart of seinen and targets older teen to adult females. Josei is probably the least famous of the demographics, and it's definitely the one with the least share of adaptations and localizations. Unless we count the Boys Love Market, but a lot of it fits under the Josei umbrella. Josei itself tends to feature more mature versions of the popular genres in shoujo. The very few Josei that I read tend to talk about romance, marriage, loss of a loved one, and dealing with workplace problems. All themes that make sense for the Josei demographic. Some big Josei titles are Shiafuru, Notame Cantabile, and Sakamishi no Apollon. And as a personal recommendation for me is Kaku Kaku Shikajika, or Blank Canvas, which has been translated into English by Seven Seas. It's a fantastic autobiographical story that just really hits deep. And by virtue of being autobiographical, it also feels incredibly personal. And this will be where I'd wrap up. But there's actually a fifth demographic we should talk about. And no, it's not hentai, though technically it could have been considered one. But if you need me to explain what hentai is, well, it's anime porn. So, Kodomo Muki, or just Kodomo, as I'll be calling it from here on out, is a less talked about demographic. Probably because by the time you reach an age where you learn what demographics are and which exist, you don't care about Kodomo manga anymore. Kodomo means child and Muki towards, so Kodomo Muki is a manga that is targeted towards children. Yay! If you watched my magazine video, and if you didn't then have a final reminder to check it out, I talked about a magazine called Koro Koro Comics that was targeted at children, and that's one example of a major Kodomo manga magazine. Kodomo actually contains a lot of massive franchises that you'll know from your childhood. A lot of those series are based on games to promote them, or made to promote other toys and merch. Beyblade and Pokemon are just two examples, but Doraemon is also a major manga in this demographic. There's actually not much else to say, so now I'll wrap things up. If you found this video informative in any way, I do plan on continuing to make videos like this and ones that go more in depth into the history and movements of manga, so consider clicking that subscribe button so as to not miss those. And if you like manga in general, do stay around because that's what this channel is about. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.